Glad y'all are here. Ronnie, as soon as y'all wrap up the conversation, we'll go and get started. So, no, appreciate y'all being here. I think we've tried to change the times around a little bit to accommodate different people's schedules, different things. We will get going. This campus talk is being videoed for YouTube and will be on YouTube's site, I think, up in a few days. We're going to hear first from our faculty. It says first from faculty and staff senate folks. And I see our staff senate president here, but I don't see Dr. I see SGA. All right, you're up first, Lindsay. Come on.
Sounds good.
Followed by, is anybody here for representing faculty senate? Okay, then we'll follow you with SGA. That's okay. And then President Courtway. Thank you. Give her a hand. Please.
Yes, thank you. A nice rousing round of applause this afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I do have a couple of announcements of things that are happening in Staff Senate as the academic year is wrapping up. Currently, one of our key programs or key activities that we do every year is Employee of the Year. So right now, we are currently in the nomination process. The nomination process ends on Friday. So if you have any of your staff members, if you know any colleagues on campus that have done a wonderful job representing UCA, worked here for at least 2 years, we'd love to have those nominations. We do have an award for classified staff and one for non-classified staff. And the application process and the nomination process asks to indicate areas of initiative, integrity, teamwork, and accomplishments for that individual. So please nominate your fellow colleagues. The spring picnic is scheduled for April 30th. So please make sure that you don't plan on bringing lunch that day or making a lunch date, because we'll see you at the McAllister Hall lawn. This event is sponsored graciously by the President's Office every single year, so we thank you guys for doing that, and all faculty and staff are invited to the spring picnic. Our bylaws committee is getting really hot and heavy with work. We updated our constitution last year and are really focusing on our bylaws this year. So we'll have a lot of updates to our bylaws for this year as we close out the year. Our next Front and Center Staff Recognition Luncheon is Wednesday, March 19th. If there are any staff members that did receive that invitation, we hope that you'll join us for a lunch and to hear some more information about Senate. We are changing the way that we are going about that staff outreach process, and in April, we're going to be doing a different programming. On April 16th from 11 to 1, we're asking all staff members, any staff members during the lunch break, to stop by the mirror room, and we'll be having some appetizers, hors d'oeuvres, and talk to you guys about Senate initiatives, and also that will complement when we're having our elections for Senate. So that process is coming up. We're currently in the nomination period. So anyone interested in serving on Senate, our terms start July 1. So we're looking for fresh faces on Senate. We have 13 vacancies, and that pretty much covers every division and every classification. So anyone at this point is definitely eligible to run for one of the Senate vacancies. So nominations are open. They'll run through April 11th, and then our voting process will take place on April 28th, 29th, and 30th. So for everyone in the audience and on camera, we hope that you'll participate in these events that are coming up. So do you guys have any questions for Senate? Okay, thank you.
Hey everyone, for those of you who don't know, my name is Ashley Ross.
And I'm Stephen Shook.
And we're here for SGA, and we have a couple of announcements for y'all also. We just had our first Day at the Capitol event where we invited other schools to come. So 5 universities across the state joined together on March 6th to talk to some state legislatures about higher education funding and just some of the events and goals that all the different universities that were present are wanting to see the next year.
Another big thing that we're doing right now is called Big Event, which SGA has been working really hard on. That is April 11th and 12th. It's a community service event. All UCA faculty, staff, students, and alumni are encouraged to help out. We have several different projects that we're working on for the community. There's several different ones. I don't have the list with me, but like I said, you can go on OrgSync. We've been emailing out links, we've been texting out links, all kinds of stuff. So if you want to get involved with that, get your students involved, get other faculty involved, We really appreciate it. On April 11th, there's also a benefit concert. It's $5. Backroad Anthem will be here, so come out, support us for that as well. Also, right now, we have our student activity fee allocation funding process that we're going through. We're having hearings this week, and we're deliberating next week, and then allocating that money for that. So that's what's going on with us.
I have a few more. During the month of April, we have a student fee advisory committee that's coming together and bringing in a couple of different departments who have student fees, and just evaluating those and discussing where we're going to go further with those and how they've affected students in the campus throughout the past couple of years. And we have applications open for the executive election. So that's all of the class presidents, vice presidents, and then the exec board. And those elections will be April 15th and 16th. So pretty soon we'll have a new exec board and a summer senate. So we're really excited about that. That's all that we really have for y'all today. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you for letting us come speak.
Did Dr. Watson make it, or any of the officers of the faculty senate? Okay, before I get started, I want to acknowledge someone in the audience and introduce him. One of our members of our Board of Trustees, Mr. Victor Green, is here. You'd hold up your hand. There you go. I think you've been in meetings all day, so you've earned your money today, Mr. Trustee. Congratulations. Thanks very much for being here. We appreciate it. We got a few questions we'll answer, and the last one is on international enrollment. I think I'll turn that one over to the provost and let Dr. Runge answer that question, and then we'll take other questions that any of you may have. The first one, someone emailed a question about McCaslin, and it's basically why are some of the accounts payable staff being moved over to the basement of McCaslin when there's been known complaints of black mold down there? Several individuals have complained in the physical plant states there's no black mold. They are not black mold abatement specialists. If we're going to have employees over there, should we not hire a reliable black mold abatement team to assure they are in no danger? Additionally, I love this, would you and your staff want to move over there in the dungeon? What I can say is that all steps are being taken to make sure that area is safe and that it is functional. Diane Newton showed me a plan this morning, a layout for the renovations that will be made, the offices that will be over there, and what I understood from her is it's going to be a few $100,000, Mr. Trustee, we don't know exactly what, that'll have to be spent to make sure to do the offices and build the offices the way they need to be built, but also to make sure that there are new air handler units and other things in that basement. I mean, clearly, there was a leak over there recently that's been repaired. It was quite an extensive repair job, but we're moving ahead to making that usable office space. I think once it's completed, which according to Diane, I was, hoping it would be by the start of the fall semester, and it's not going to be. It's going to be sometime later than that, as I understand it. So I think the finished product, well, let me back up. I know the finished product will be safe because we won't put anybody over there unless we're convinced of that. And it'll also be very functional office space. So I think if people will bear with us, that the finished office spaces over there will be something that won't be a dungeon. It's still obviously it's not the third floor with a view, but it's very functional space, I believe, and I think it'll work well. Another question was about a residence hall and essentially why we're building sorority houses. This person felt like that was not an appropriate expenditure of funds at a time when they believe that some of the residence halls are not up to what they believe would be an appropriate standard. What I can say is that whether or not to build the sorority houses in the first phase of the NPHC Center was thoroughly debated by the board, and I believe that is a very good decision moving forward for the university with regard to the renovations. And Rick McCollum's here, and he can correct me if I'm wrong. There were a few years ago when we probably didn't have the funds, and nor did we commit the funds necessary to upgrade and renovate our housing stock in the summer. That has not been the case the last 2 or 3 summers. And Rick, correct me if I'm getting my time wrong. Significant amounts of money have been put in our residence halls to put kitchens in them, to upgrade. Last year, in the summer, we finally got rid of the communal bathrooms in the last 3 residence halls that we had. And so the housing staff on the campus and the physical plan and everybody that is involved in that spends a lot of time, and we put additional resources in there to upgrade those facilities. Certainly, a residence hall that was built in 1960, regardless of how much paint you put on it and how much renovation and repair work you do, is not going to be as pretty as a residence hall that was built in 2012. It's just a fact. But I think by and large, based on what I've heard from other institutions, I'm very proud of what we have been able to do over the last 2 or 3 summers to renovate our residence halls. We'll continue to do that, but I think the sorority houses and the NPH Center is separate and apart from that process of repair and renovation of those residence halls. Stephanie, did I misspeak? I don't know the amount of money, but Diane, some figure of $1.2 million sticks in my head. I don't know whether that was just in one summer or whether that's been over a cumulative over a couple of summers. But I do know that having those private areas in the bathing facilities and the restroom areas has made a big difference with the students. So I think it's cut down on the number of complaints that at least that I've heard. So I think that's been very beneficial. But we can't lose sight of the fact that we've got to keep plowing money into those facilities every year, because Short Denny and some of those other older residence halls have already paid for themselves, and they are generating a sufficient serious revenue on the auxiliary side of the house. The final one that I'll answer, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Runge, is there was a question submitted about smoking on campus and about people being, the question started out about electronic cigarettes and that we ban them, but then, oh, by the way, it appears that people are smoking on the sidewalk in front of the president's home and on the little bridge that there is on Robbins Street, right if you leave the stoplight going up from Donaghy. And sort of what is the rule? Well, the rule used to be, before the state legislature changed the law, that it was basically, in our policy was 25 feet from any entrance of a building. Then the state legislature mandated that a college campus and buildings had to be smoke-free. And that was, I don't know, I think that was in 2009. That I'd have to go back and check. It was either 9 or 11, but I believe it was 09. That was a state law that was mandated against institutions of higher education. Our board then adopted a policy that said, consistent with that, not only could you smoke, not only was smoking prohibited, but any use of tobacco products on the campus and any university-owned vehicle was prohibited. So that's where we were. And then the board has then come back in the last board meeting and made the same prohibition apply to electronic cigarettes or vaporized type products. With regard to the sidewalk and with regard to the little bridge, my understanding is those are not UCA property. That's sort of I believe the sidewalk, those of you who remember the sidewalk debate a few years ago, I believe that sidewalk is in a city right-of-way. And I believe the little bridge over there is the same thing. It's part of the street. So I don't know if the chief wants to test the enforceability of a ticket of someone smoking on that sidewalk or on that bridge. So it's one of those things where I think from an enforcement standpoint, given the fact that that sidewalk and that bridge are in my mind on city property, it's permissible. Is it unsightly? Yes. Cigarette butts are, thrown down and other things like that. But from an enforcement standpoint, I don't believe it can be enforced. There may be other sidewalks around that are in the city right away. We've gotten a few complaints about smoking on the property that is between the Catholic house and the Baptist house there on that sidewalk. I believe all that's privately owned land as well. I'm not sure about the fee title in that area, that one sidewalk. I know it's our sidewalk. We may own it, but I do know that a large portion of that land over there, those areas are privately owned. They're not part of the state property. So for that reason, we couldn't enforce it even if we wanted to. So that's where we stand. I never thought, quite frankly, that the ban on smoking would pass on a college campus. I was surprised when the legislature did that, but they did it, and we've taken steps to do not only that but more on this campus. So those are those questions, and now I think Dr. Runge can address. We got one on international programs and international recruitment, so I think he can handle that much better than I can. And then I'll come back and we'll take any other questions.
Thank you, President Courtway. This question states that international student enrollment has decreased and the international student population is more heavily weighted than ever in one or two countries. Several years ago, the university made a commitment to not only increasing international student numbers, but also diversifying the population. No active recruitment of international students has been done in more than 3 years. Has UCA decided that diversity isn't important, despite the fact that it's one of the key areas of the strategic plan? If not, why isn't anything being done to increase and diversify the international student population? So I'll say, first off, that the declarative statements that start before the question are incorrect. So they're just not correct. In July of 2012, we hired Jane Ann Williams as Assistant Provost and Director of International Engagement. And one of the most important charges that Jane Ann received was to increase the number of international students on campus over time, to diversify the number of countries that those students come from, and to get more degree-seeking students on our campus as opposed to students who come for 1 or 2 semesters. So under her leadership in international engagement, they've developed a strategic plan which is attracting students from across the globe. We now have the data to show that we have students on our campus from 63 different countries, ranging from, and I just did this is from Australia to Zambia, all right? So we got the whole thing in there. The number 1 provider of international students to UCA is China. We did go through a period of time when we were very centered on that part of the world. So it was the Mandarin-speaking countries. We developed a global education project that targeted those students. We've now moved away from that towards recruiting these degree-seeking students. Now, are we down a little bit from where we were? Yes. We're at, I think, 487 international students on campus right now. We're down about 80 students from where we were 2 years ago, but we're increasing the proportion of degree-seeking students. So as we move forward and those students come to UCA and stay for 2, 3, 4 years and earn their degree, these numbers will increase. We're working very diligently to bring people from a number of countries here. We had a Leaders of the World conference on campus last week. We had people from 4 different continents here participating in that meeting, signing memorandums of understanding and agreements with us to not only bring students to UCA, but to initiate agreements that will send our students to other countries to study as well. So we have a lot going on. The international engagement staff has been very busy. They, I think, worked many overtime hours last week with the Leaders of the World conference. Travel is ongoing to recruit from Africa, from Latin America, from China, from other countries. We've made our first ever recruiting trip to India, so we're working very diligently on that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks. And I'll just echo what Dr. Runge said. I thought that was well put, and I'll commend Jane Ann and her staff and the Provost's office for that leadership conference last week. That was a great event on our campus. Any questions from the floor right now? Legislature finished today. Private option passed, as you well know, which averted a funding shortfall, not only for the state but for higher ed. We don't have a lot of new money, so don't start spending it. I think about $400,000, which in the overall scheme of things, it's better than a $400,000 cut, but we'll probably not do anything with it, just put it on the shelf and pray that we get it. But anyway, good news that the budget did pass, that there wasn't a cut, private option did pass, so good news today on that front. I think as I visited with Dr. Runge and I've visited with a few others, we'll have one more of these, I think next month. I don't know the date or the time or the venue, but as we move forward in the fall semester, we may change the format slightly and do sort of a brown bag luncheon occasionally, maybe once a semester, and then do one of these once a semester. I don't want people to not come, but also want to make sure they're topical and timely. And your participation in coming is critical, because it not only makes you more informed, but it also provides us with an opportunity to get information out for the faculty senate, the staff senate, and also the student government leaders to make sure the campus is informed about whatever they need to tell them about. So thank you. Any other comments, questions before you adjourn? Okay, thanks very much. Appreciate it.